Welcome back to Significant Coaching. I'm Matt Rogers. I'm so glad you're here. I've got a great guest for you today. One of my former players, Oliver Wiseman, who's now the head women's basketball coach at Benedictine University in Chicago. And man, is he good. He is just really, really smart. He's always been, even when he was playing for me, he was the smartest kid in the gym, always led us in GPA. But I'm excited to share that conversation with you. Before we get into Oliver, though, um, I watched an interview today that somebody posted on Instagram with Billy Donovan, the coach of the Bulls, and I thought it was really, really significant in how Billy talked about the importance of your time on the floor or on the field, whatever your sport is, and what you do with that time. And basically the story was Billy had a player who's a really good shooter, and the kid in a game went like 1 for 11. Okay. Just terrible night shooting the ball, didn't shoot it well at all. And he was really frustrated. He was really down. And Billy went to him and said, "Why are you down?" And he goes, "Well, coach, I didn't shoot it really well tonight." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "How many minutes did you play?" And the kid goes, "I played 38 minutes. And he goes, "Well, how many shots did you miss?" "I missed 10 shots. And he goes, "Well, how long does it take for you to get a shot off?" And the kid looked at him funny and said, "I don't know, about a second." So Billy looked at him and said, "Okay, so you played 38 minutes, you missed 10 shots, took you 10 seconds to shoot. So basically, you let 10 seconds affect the 37 minutes and 50 seconds you were on the floor." And I thought that was fantastic because for me, it's kind of what I did as a player. I let a bad pass, a missed shot affect the rest of my game, or at least, the next few minutes, the next few possessions. And I never really heard it that way. So for those of you that are coaching kids, those are great conversations to have with your players and your athletes to let them know that missed shot, that turnover, that walk, that strikeout, that missed kill, that bad lap in the pool, whatever that may be. It's such a small increment of what their career is, what that game is, what that meet is, what that match is. And I think it was just a great messaging. And I'm going to talk to my boys about it tonight before our game to kind of get that in their head. And I've already sent it to all of them on Instagram and through social media, but I'm going to have a deeper conversation about it tonight because I don't want my guys to be upset about a missed call or a missed bucket or a bad possession. I want them to understand that's over. Now, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do with that next opportunity? So, and it's a good lead in to Oliver because Coach Wiseman really lives that life. He knows he's going to have a bad day. He knows they're going to win some and lose some, but he's always thinking about what's next. How can I make these kids better? How can I grow them? How can I mature them? How can I give them more confidence? And he understands the disappointments, the loss, the failure is a part of that growth. So I had a great conversation with him today. You're going to want to keep your notebook out because Oliver wrote the back end of chapter 7 of my book for me. So we dove into how he recruits, his recruiting board. We talked about how important it is for families to introduce themselves to coaches, for kids to invite coaches to recruit them. And he gives some really great reasons why that helps him as a head coach. We talked about the importance of summer camps and how to use those summer camps to your advantage as a recruit, and how it's an advantage for the coaches to see you at their camps and work with you at your camps. And then I had him give me his 3 priorities for what he's looking for in a recruit. And I won't spoil it here, but they were really, really great. It got my brain thinking, and I know it will be for you as well. So um, this is a coach I love like a son. He's one of my guys. I'm so proud of him. He's done a fantastic job wherever he's been. He was at Maryville University with me. He was at Knox College for a number of years. He was at UW Parkside. He was at Lindenwood. He was at University of Missouri St. Louis. And now he's running his own program. He's in year 3 at Benedictine University up in Chicago. And it's a program that's going to blow up if he can just get his top players healthy. His top 2 players have been hurt almost all year, and they're still 4-2 in the league with a chance to win the league. So he's just a really great coach. He's got a wonderful wife. They've got 2 great kids and a third on the way. So this is Mr. Everything. Great dad, great husband, really great coach, great leader, and I'm proud to call him a friend. So without further ado, Oliver Wiseman. Coach Wiseman, you've coached at a lot of levels. You've coached men and women. What's changed for you in terms of just recruiting? How have you taken all the things that you've learned with recruiting as an assistant, D3, D2, NAI? What have you done with recruiting now that you're coaching women? Has it changed over the years? Has it evolved?
I think well, there's the obvious when there's an obvious difference between levels in terms of like the quality of athlete you're recruiting. And you're at D2. I was really big on size, and I was an assistant coach, and so that was kind of what our head coach leaned towards, but size and things like that. So that stuff obviously changes, because as much as I may want to find a 6'1" wing here, that's going to be hard for me to. It won't be hard to find, but it'll be hard for me to actually get her.
Right.
So there's the obvious stuff that changes. I think aside from that stuff, for me, now that I'm a head coach, I have really, really honed in more on the person and their body language. And I go to games and I make sure I get there early to watch the warm-ups and see like their interactions with other people. I've really honed in on that way more as a head coach, probably than I did as an assistant coach. Just because as a head coach, when you have those problems, you're the ones who had to deal with them. and as an assistant, like those problems are there, but you're not the one who has to actually make the final decision on what says or what goes. So as a head coach, I think I've honed in way more on that, and I pay attention to that a lot more. Aside from that, I don't know that much has changed in terms of what I look for from an X's and O's or skill set standpoint. But for sure, the personality stuff and culture piece, big deal. Yeah.
How you educate your assistants on recruiting, has that changed as well? And what you're looking for? I mean, do you talk that character piece a lot more with them than maybe the head coaches you've worked for in the past did with you?
Yes, for sure. It wasn't really something that was talked to me or talked about to me as an assistant coach. Not much. We talked about it like within our program, but we paid attention to those things, or I paid attention to them. Like
Sure.
if I saw a kid get a tech, I scratched their name off. But it wasn't something that the head coach, ever sat down and talked with me about, or we sat and watched the kid and, we pointed things out that we saw when it came to body language and things like that. So,
Right.
yeah, for me as a head coach, I've been here. This is my 3rd year. So I'm on my 2nd assistant coach now. But my first assistant, she had done a year as a GA before coming over. And this assistant, this is actually her first collegiate coaching position.
Yeah.
So with both of them, I've had to actually sit and talk. This is specifically what we're looking for in this order. And so the way I've approached it is generally have them come with me, to watch, usually someone who's already committed to us. And so ideally, I'm not pointing out what I want it to look like, but I can say, you see how she's doing this, you see how she's doing that.
Right.
So have them come watch, kids that are already committed to us, and then kind of point out the things that kid is doing that attracted me to that kid. And so, like, for example, we watched a post player a couple weeks ago, and I told her, I said, you can see, like, she's kind of raw, but she's doing this, this, and this, and this. And as I was saying this, a teammate fell down and she sprints to go pick her up. And I said, like, that right there, like, she's sprinting to go pick this girl up. Every possession, like, she's running back, she's talking. And so I've been very intentional about making sure to point out, like, specifically what we're looking for in what order. We care about this first. If they don't have this, then we're not even looking for the other things because we moved on.
You're articulating your talk track, your thought process, right?
There you go.
Yeah. I love that. Is it making you a better recruiter having to teach your staff about recruiting? Are you finding that you're learning because of that?
I think coaching and being a head coach and coaching our own players has made me a better recruiter.
Right.
But what it has done is it's held me accountable to practice what I preach when it comes to the recruiting. So
right.
So me teaching them or going through that process with them kind of makes me check myself when I watch a kid, and it makes me less likely to ignore something that maybe is a red flag,
right.
because I've already told them, hey, this is what we don't want. And so I see a kid who is hyper athletic or makes a couple really great plays, and it makes me less inclined to ignore the fact that she didn't run the sprint to pick someone up, or
right.
So it's probably made me better in that regard, and just that it makes me practice what I preach.
Right. So for families that are listening to this and don't understand how college staffs are built, when you're a D3 coach, NAI coach, even oftentimes a Division II coach, you hardly have any money to throw at an assistant coach, right?
Yep.
If you're a D3 or an NAI coach and you have a full-time assistant, it might be 30,000. It might be 35,000. Maybe it's 10,000 with some housing. So what I don't think a lot of people understand is you're really doing everything as the head coach, everything,
for sure.
And what I love, even, at my age, been doing this for 26, 27 years. I've got an assistant right now that my kids love. He's our JV coach. Kids just absolutely love him, but he never played high school basketball. He was kind of a rec player, went in the Army, loved basketball, played in rec in the Army and things like that, but he was never really taught the game. So I'm finding myself sitting down with him and we're talking how to break a 2-3 zone. Okay, if you see a 2-man front, even front, we want to throw an odd front at it and overload, and then talk about the backside. And I'm finding things like that. I'm like, oh man, if I'm teaching him that, I've got to do a better job of explaining it to my kids. Because if he's struggling with it, I guarantee you my 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds are struggling with it, right?
Right.
And it's always been that way for me. The more I teach it, the more I understand it. Do you feel that way?
Oh yeah. Because they're going to ask questions, and so those questions are, most of the time, they're valid questions, right? So they're going to ask questions, and so you're going to have to have thought out your answer, and so they want to know, well, why don't we do it this way, or what about this? And so you better know why.
That's right.
And so it makes you have to really know your stuff, while also, like, allowing you, if you let it, allowing you to reevaluate some things that you do, because maybe them asking why we do this or what about that, maybe that's a valid thing and you should be doing it a different way. yeah, teaching the game makes you a better teacher, and it makes you a better player. Like,
Yes.
I, I played my best basketball a couple of years after I graduated,
Yep.
and coaching. And it was like, man, I'm reading this, I'm reading that. I know exactly. Oh, that kid did this. I'm gonna back cut here. Like, yeah,
Yep.
teaching it makes you better for sure.
Yes. I've said that out loud. I probably said it to you when you were playing for me and coaching for me. I was the best basketball player I ever was when I was 24 years old.
Yep.
And I was like, great. I don't have any eligibility left. I can't do anything with it. But man, I really understand the game. I understand movement and spacing better than any time I ever did when I was a player. So, and now as a coach, you're trying to, how do I make that so my kids I'm coaching don't feel that way, that they can find their best basketball in their prime, right?
So I had the exact same thought process. I try to do it a couple ways. So I coach for an AAU program here in the spring and the summer. But each year, like, I'll try to get a player or two of mine to coach in the program.
Right.
Just so that they have to coach and they have to teach and they have to explain why, to do certain things.
That's so great. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then outside of that, when we have elite camps and high school camps and stuff like that, like, our players have to work it. And I usually try to give them each, a group of 6 or 7 girls or whatever. And like, they coach that team for the day. But we're running all the same stuff that we run in our program.
It's great.
And so when we talk about how to sprint to set a screen and walk to read it, they have to repeat that, and they have to do it, and they have to explain to someone else.
That's so good.
And hopefully it's making them smarter, because as we said, teaching it ideally makes you to understand it better and makes you smarter.
That's great. I love that. I love that. Keep that up. I want to hear how that's progressing too.
Yeah.
What you're seeing out of that coaching. That's great.
It's awesome. It's awesome because all the things you get frustrated about as a coach, you get to watch them get frustrated about.
Oh, it's karma, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. All the you constantly yelling at her, wait, slow down, read the screen. You get to watch them yell at someone else about it.
Irony. That's great. I've been asking all the college coaches this, Oliver, and I'm going to ask you too. Tell me what your recruiting board looks like, and then I want to dive in. I want to get more of those specifics of what you're looking for to recruit. But tell me how young of a kid are you looking at, and then what does that board look like? Now, it doesn't even have to be a literal board, but how many kids are you recruiting in every class? Are you putting them in tiers? I need 3 positions. I'm going to look at 20 point guards, 20 small forwards, 20 centers. How do you organize all that?
Okay. So this will probably be a longer answer.
I want the depth. This is the stuff that gets me excited.
So I have a literal physical recruiting board,
Awesome.
Just on the whiteboard. So that board has our current team, according to what year they're in and what position.
Okay.
So we got, seniors at the top and then down to freshmen, but also arranged by position or, quote unquote positions, because people are so versatile these days.
Right.
So then below that is that high school senior class. And then the class below that, high school juniors. I have a list, an Excel document that'll have younger kids, freshmen, sophomores. Right. But in terms of like who's on an actual board in my office that I'm looking at, we're not usually going past high school juniors.
Okay. And it makes sense, right?
Yeah. There's younger kids I know about, but it's too early, it's too far in advance for me to actually, have their name on the board and be thinking about how they would fit into an equation, because right now she's 5'4" and I like her motor, but I don't know how tall she's going to be,
right,
3 years from now.
Right.
So from a literal standpoint, that's what the board looks like. And I do it that way to just kind of help me get a visual of not only how many we're losing, but at what positions we're losing, et cetera. As far as, the Excel document, there's a tab for each graduating class. So there's, in this case, it'd be 2024s. There's a tab for 25s, 26s, 27s. Within each of those tabs, we kind of have a tiered system. We go off of a star rating. So 5 stars down to 1. 5 stars is someone that I would think would come in and either she's probably a shoe in to start or she's competing for a starting spot.
Your 5-star is?
Yeah, 5 stars. Yeah.
Okay. Love it.
4 stars would be competing, to start, but probably 4 stars, you're definitely, or at least talent wise, you'd be in the rotation. I would expect, and you'd be competing to start. 5 stars is you're good enough to start talent wise. I just don't know if you actually would.
Right.
3 stars is you'd be competing for or you'd be competing for meaningful minutes. Probably not good enough to be in the conversation, of being in our top 7. But you would, I could see you getting there by the time, you're a sophomore, junior.
Okay. All right.
And 2 stars or 1 star is you're probably, we're hoping you're going to be a solid practice player early on, not a drill killer. Maybe by the time you would leave, I would foresee you as being someone who, could be in our rotation. But realistically, probably not likely to be competing for a starting spot, as a junior.
Okay.
But to be honest with you, I try my best not to recruit those kids that would be 2 stars or 1 star.
Why would you? Right.
In my head, I never want to recruit someone that I don't see being capable of being an impactful player for us at any point in our career.
That's right.
I have, those 1 and 2 star players on the list because as I'm watching AAU or high school, I want to identify them because that kid may reach out to me 2 months from now in an email or something like that. And I'd like to already know that I've already watched that kid play and I've already determined, she's a 1 or 2 star.
Right.
And so I don't get an email from the kid and then not knowing anything about her, go out and watch her and spend, an evening watching a game of a kid that I saw earlier this summer. So I'll still write, their names down and kind of prioritize them and all that, even though I know there's someone that we may not necessarily actively recruit.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you a hard question. I'm going to take you back to being 17. What rating would you give yourself coming out of high school in retrospect?
3.
Okay. That's where I would have you too. See, what I love about recruiting the 2s and the 3s and having a couple of those kids is I don't have Caleb Lawson. I don't have Josh Lawley. I don't have you if I only recruit 4s and 5s. And I think about you 3 guys, how smart you were, how much you impacted my program with your brain in the end, more than even your ability. And the fact that you're all became really good head coaches. You've all become really good basketball coaches. And I think a basketball program needs those kids with the high basketball IQ, the big motor, the big drive, maybe not the size, maybe not the skill yet, but those kids that are going to drive those 4s and 5s.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Do you feel like you're getting that out of those 2s and 3s in your program, that they're pushing your 4s and 5s?
That's actually a way tougher question than the first one.
Yeah, this is just your 3rd year of the program, so you're still getting through a recruiting cycle. So it's hard. It is hard to see.
That's the reason why.
Yeah,
that's the reason why. It's just because so this is my 3rd season, which means that this year's freshmen are only my 2nd recruiting class. I do think so. My thing kind of coming in with when it came to recruiting was everyone that we brought in, I wanted to, at the very least, be better players than, you know, the bottom two that were already there. So
Right.
we're trying to raise our floor. um,
Right.
because we needed to have more competitive practices on a daily basis. So
Yes.
from that standpoint, I definitely think that's the case. And I'll even say, even at this very moment, so we have a game later today. There's a girl who's going to start for us as a sophomore today, who I brought in as she was a 3 in my mind, and she's done really well.
It's great.
And she's really started to get better, and she's starting today.
That's
So
fantastic.
I would
Good for
definitely
her.
say, yeah, those kids have they've been able to push some of the better ones, and they've improved because of it.
That's great. Okay. So you've been through really 2 recruiting cycles. You're in the midst of your third. Talk to me about, can you narrow down what you're looking for to like 3 or 4 categories? So if I'm a parent listening to this, and I've got a 16-year-old basketball player, and we're trying to get her prepared to get recruited. What are the things I need to understand to explain to my daughter that she knows what's a head coach like you is really looking for?
Yep.
You know, you've touched on it, but I want
Yeah.
you to go into more detail, because I know you have that. I know there's certain things that you're looking for.
So obviously, every coach, every program has a different philosophy, and it's different. So the things I look for aren't necessarily what, you know, the guy next to me is looking for. So the first thing for me is not really something many players or parents can do anything about to help themselves. But it's just, I just kind of go, does she look the part?
Explain that.
Because
Go into some detail there.
does she look, does she move like does she move like an athlete? Does she look like physically confident? Does she look like, if I saw her in the airport, would I think to myself, oh, I wonder if she plays a sport?
Okay.
You know, does she look the part?
Why is that so important?
Because I think it's kind of the one aspect of my recruiting that allows me to just go with my gut.
Okay.
It's kind of the one thing where, after if you coach enough, you can walk in the gym and you watch kids for 2 minutes and you know who can play and who can't.
Right.
And so it's the one thing, I just rely on my gut on. And does she look the part? You know? Not to say that if you don't, quote unquote, look the part, I won't pay you any attention.
Yeah.
But I walk in, I'm watching warmups. I find kids in warmups before I've seen anybody ever read a deep. I find kids that look, that I go, I like the way she looks. We're gonna see if she can play.
Right. Right.
I don't know. It's just one of those things where I like I said, I can go with my gut. And from the jump, there was something about you that my gut said, I'm going to pay attention to her.
Right. Well, go back to the airport. You know, if you got a kid in front of you, and they're walking down the left side of the aisle where all the people are coming down them, and everybody else is going right, and they're not even paying attention to the flow of traffic, your mind is going, this kid doesn't get it.
Right. Yeah.
This kid isn't observant. Yep. Right. Let alone the walk, and, you know, the balance that they have and the confidence that they carry in their shoulders. It's just, you know, that's what I was always looking for. I wanted a kid with some vision. I wanted a kid that could see through the fingers. They could see through the floor and play chess. You know, are you anticipating?
Yep.
And you can see that even when they're not on the court, right?
You've coached for a long time. It does happen, but it's very rare that the best kid on the team that you're playing against, it's very rare that it's not super obvious. Yeah. Like, how often we played with a guy, actually, or I played with a guy that you recruited that didn't really look the part and was a hell of a player, but it doesn't happen usually. Like, especially with athletes, like whether it's basketball, football, they just kind of have an aura or a feel when you're around them, when you're walking around. They don't even have to be on the court. You can just kind of tell, like, they have it.
Yeah.
The guy I was thinking
I
about,
want to know the player now. Which one are you?
Jason Simmons.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jason Simmons, he didn't look the
Great
part. He didn't look the part,
example.
but he could play. But he could play, and so it
Yes.
happens. It happens. But like I said, it's kind of the one thing that allows me to go. My gut on that kid is that kid, has it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
do you look the part? After that, the next biggest thing for me is motor.
Okay. Now
People,
explain what motor can
yeah,
be different things. So what's that mean to you?
kids that sprint all the time. They're constantly talking. Their eyes are moving. Their heads moving. They're always in a stance. They're always alert. Um, when they come off the court, like they don't walk. Just they seem to operate at a faster pace, and they just kind of seem like they're always engaged. Um, in my experience, I've found as a head coach and as an assistant, not just with recruits, but with players that are on the current team, um, kids that I would say have high motors, they tend to also be the kids that want to get in the gym outside of practice. They're also the kids that are asking you, for workouts or they want feedback. They're the ones that watch film outside of practice. I don't know why, but the people that they're the ones that if they didn't play basketball, they would still be exercising. Like
Right.
they would if they didn't play basketball, they still would want to go run or just kids that have a high motor. It is I don't like to recruit kids that don't have motor
Yes.
because I don't want to ever feel like I'm talking someone into playing basketball.
That's right.
So if you don't have the skill or the talent, I I can stomach it way more if I know that you're passionate and it looks like you're passionate and you're playing hard. But I don't want to talk you into playing basketball. I don't want to talk you into practicing hard,
Right.
um, playing hard. So I try to just recruit kids that it looks like they already do that, and it looks like they actually have passion about it and they love it and they play hard. Those are the kids that can do things wrong, but they make up for it because they played hard and they hustle back and they got it back.
Well, and you also know what frustrates you. The last thing you want
Yes,
is to recruit
yes,
kids that are already bringing your pet peeves to the table. You right?
absolutely, absolutely. Like I really value intense and competitive practices,
Right.
and so the last thing I need is someone who's walking around.
Absolutely. And that's, I don't think parents understand that. What uh, every coach is different, but every coach has pet peeves. Every coach wants joy. There's so much stress in our life as a coach that you want so many kids in your program that you just know are going to bring you joy. They're not going to zap your energy. They're not going to take away from what you want to accomplish every day. They're not going to be an obstacle to that growth. Am I
Yep,
wrong?
yep, 100%, 100%. You go
You
ahead.
you might be scoring. You might be 6'1", scoring 22 and 12. But man, I watch you play, and I'm not even coaching you. I'm just in the stands, and it's zapping my energy
Yes,
watching you play.
yes.
Right.
Basketball is the longest season. It covers both semesters.
Right.
We start in terms of the official start of the season starts in October. You're going to go at least through February if you're lucky into March.
Right.
It's five, 6.5 months,
Right.
whatever you have your preseason. I don't need energy zappers. That wears on you for 5 or 6 months. It's not
It
it's not 1 month where I can kind of put up with it, but for 5 or 6 months of you coming in the building and dragging your feet, and we're trying to get going, and you're the last one into the huddle, and so we're waiting on you, and like it wears on me and it wears on teammates, and yeah, the more people we can have that they just operate, with a high motor, and they're just kind of always alert, and like you don't have to set an alarm. They're waking up at 6. Like
Yeah.
those, they tend to do better, I think, in basketball and in life. They just tend to do better.
Yeah. And it's no different for the assistant coaches. One of the things I teach my assistant coaches is if you can beat me to the gym every day, I'm already happy. If I don't have to, if the gym's already getting set up when I get there, man,
Yep.
we're gonna have good practice that day.
Yep.
If I got to get in there and I got to get the baskets down, I got to get the balls out, I got to set up the clock, you know, and I'm waiting for you, then we got a problem.
So, all right. So here's the thing. I agree with you in that how much I appreciate that.
Yeah.
However, it may just be because I've been an assistant for longer than I've been a head coach,
Yeah.
but I'm still kind of wired that I want to be the first person there.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So,
so do I. But that's the challenge to an assistant coach, is it not? You want to learn how to be a head coach,
oh yeah, for
right?
sure. I mean, for me as a head coach, like today, so we had shoot around this morning,
Right.
and I pulled up in the parking lot, and my assistant she was walking up to the ramp, so she probably got there a minute before I did,
Right.
and I was annoyed that she beat me. So
I love it. But that's again, whether you're annoyed or not, it's still that, okay, there's still that challenge that you're getting. Same thing you want from your kids. You want that
yep,
challenge. You don't want the annoyance, you want the challenge. And your
yeah,
assistant's giving you that challenge. And that's awesome.
I was happy. I was happy that she, but I was like, gosh, she beat me, like, Um, and now for me, I would say where we probably differ is I kind of find peace in setting up the gym before
Yeah.
practice.
Yep.
So I have no problem at all, like bringing the ball rack out, and
Yeah.
like I like mopping the floor before we start practice and all that. It helps me to mentally get ready.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but just in terms of like, I don't want to feel like I care more about this than everyone else.
Exactly.
So I want you to get there early, and maybe you can't mop the floor because I'm doing that, but you can find something else.
That's right. I, the older I get, and I've been doing this a lot longer than you have, the older I get, I want that time before practice to have some conversations. I want to get into the relationships, So I love it too. I love getting there early and mopping the floor, and just having an empty gym is so wonderful to me.
Yeah, yeah,
The smells and the smell of the pine, and just being able to look around and absorb that feeling before the energy walks in. I love that too. But I'm getting to the point now, and you're going to go, coach, I wish you were more like this 20 years ago for me. But, I really enjoy walking into the gym, and I can immediately have conversations. We talk about mom and dad. We talk about class. We can talk about girlfriends. We talk about, relationships, and just see how they're doing. And so when I've got managers and I've got assistant coaches that can get some of that other stuff done for me, it just allows me to remember why I'm there. I'm
yeah,
there for that relationship. So when I got to deal with problems and I got to deal with stuff that is meaningless to what we're doing with the basketball program, and I start with a bad start to my practice. You know what I mean?
yep, yep. Makes sense.
All right, I got you off track here. So does she look the part? Does she have a motor?
Yep.
What else are you looking for recruit?
So from those are literally those. That's the order in which I go. So it's does she look the part, and then it's motor, and then from there it's more of the actual skill and IQ and talent stuff. So from there it's not necessarily talent, I should say, but it's the little things that, like you said, like I'm trying my best not to bring on the things that I have pet peeves about.
Right.
So it's okay. Does she already know to turn and box out every time a shot goes up? Does she sprint to set a screen? Does she take her time to read a screen? Um, it's all those little things that we do teach and we have a way of doing, but I prefer not to be teaching those things.
Right.
And so it's those little things. Is she in a stance on defense? Does she stare at the ball? Does she stare at her man? Is she hugging people? Or is she over in help side? Does she come over? All those little things, the little intricacies, not necessarily the talent part of scoring. That stuff's really easy. You can easily tell who can shoot the ball or who can score the ball.
Yeah.
But it's all those other little things that I want to teach as few as possible.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to teach those things, and we're gonna have to rep those things out. But I want you to at least start from a higher point, and me not be teaching you from ground zero.
Right.
So it's those things, and then after that, it's the the actual putting the ball in the hole type of things. Okay, how consistent is her shot?
Right.
How consistently is she making the right decision to shoot or not shoot? All those things. Just because I think that you can get better at the skill things. With reps and coaching, you can get better at those things. And I kind of enjoy and don't mind coaching those things.
Right.
But all the other little things that, like, not boxing out is not something I want to teach a college basketball player.
That's right.
So yeah,
It's like buying a house. This house is beautiful. It's got nice garage. It's got a beautiful kitchen. It's got 3 bedrooms. It fits our needs. But this other house, it's got a deck, a brand new deck, and it's got a newer kitchen, and the bathrooms were just refinished. Same size, but there's things that, man, I don't have to put work into that. I don't have to put any money or time into that. It's already there. Yep. So there might be 2 kids, same size, really same ability, but one understands when to cut, when there's a back cut, understands how to set a screen properly, understands where her feet need to be when she's 2 passes away, right?
Yes.
And if I don't have to teach that, she's a more valuable recruit to me, right?
100%, because as you get to a higher level, those things become the reason why you get to score.
That's right.
That's right. So in high school or whatever, AAU, whatever, those things, you can score points without necessarily having those things in place or being able to do those things as well as you probably will need to in college. But when you get to college and you're going to be scouted and all those, and the defenders are tougher and taller and all those things, your fundamentals, how can you read a screen, that's what ends up being the reason why you get to score.
That's right. That's right.
So like you said, 2 girls averaging 17 points a game for their high school, but one of them reads these situations better and knows when to cut and all that. That kid's probably more likely to have her points actually translate to college,
right,
than the other kid, because she has the foundation. And so, yeah, it's those little things. I care way more about those things. And like I said, the motor piece is really crucial, because maybe you don't have as much talent, but you do understand, spacing and those things. And then to me, where motor comes in is, like I said, those kids with the motor tend to be the ones that will get up extra shots, and so their talent will catch up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I find it so interesting when I'm talking to families, when I'm talking to parents, they don't understand the difference between 2 kids scoring 17 a game.
Yes.
The one kid is scoring 17 points per game in the flow of an offense. She's getting to the free throw line 5 times a game. She's getting 4 to 6 points a game off of offensive rebound putbacks.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, and the other girl that's scoring 17, she's getting 25 shots a game to get those 17 points, and the offense is flowing. The ball's in her hands, and she's got screens and space to just score.
Yep.
So now what's going to happen when I need her to know how to come off a screen and cut and run our offense, because I've got 9 other girls that are just as good as her? Can she do that? Right.
So I have a player who she's a commit of ours. So she's a high school senior right now. I've known her for a couple of years. Great kid, but her high school team hasn't been really good, and so they've lost more games than they've won. I went and watched her play a week or 2 ago. She did okay. I think she hit maybe three or 4 threes. Just kind of did okay. Didn't, as far as scoring goes, she wasn't shooting the lights out. She wasn't unstoppable.
Right.
And so after the game, she's like, well, coach, like, what'd you think? Can you give me some feedback? And I said, you're standing up on defense. You're staring at the ball. All these things. Didn't say a word about scoring.
Right.
And she's like, okay, yeah, my parents also said this about my scoring. And I didn't say a word to you about scoring. I don't care about your scoring. And I said, listen, you're 17 years old. Our best player next year is going to be a 6th-year senior who who is by far our best player. And scoring is not going to be something that I'm looking for you to do. So now she can shoot the ball. So yeah, you're gonna have to be able to make shots. I said, the team that scores more points than the other team is a team that wins. So scoring doesn't matter.
Right.
However, if you think that you're gonna enter a place and your main job is to score, you're gonna your world is gonna be rocked, because these girls are 4 or 5 years older than you, and sure, maybe you can score, but they can score better, and they've been doing it for 4 years here, and you're just showing up. So these other little things are going to be ways that you can get on the floor, and ways you can contribute. And what you're going to find is that you can probably score points because you got an offensive rebound putback, and you can find other ways to score. But I'm not looking. There's no freshman that I foresee us being able to bring in and just go, yeah, we're going to bring her in and we're going to give her the ball and say, go score.
Yeah. If you get that kid, you've done something really well, right? Because that kid is being recruited by 200 other coaches.
Yep.
You can find a freshman, an 18-year-old that can step onto a college court, I don't care what division level, and they can be your best scorer, and you have to run the offense around them day one.
Right.
You've done something, because now you're sacrificing a relationship with your older kids, your older girls, right? If you make that freshman the centerpiece of your offense, now all your older girls that have worked their tail off and been loyal to you are going, what's the deal, coach? Right. You got to come in and earn that. You got to come in and earn that, right? And that's very rare to find that freshman. Even Caitlin Clark, who had a great freshman year at Iowa, she wasn't the centerpiece of that offense like she is now, right?
Right.
So that's such great advice, Coach. Really great advice. All right, I want to transition a little bit. I want to stay in the recruiting world, but I want to get to the other side. And you did such a great job. I'm so thankful, Oliver, for what you wrote in my book, and just the words you put together and the advice you gave. And I want to touch on a little bit of some of it, because I want to elaborate on it. And for those of you that have read the book or might going to buy the book, it's chapter 7 that Coach Wiseman wrote the back end for me. I had you write on the topic of the invitation. Okay.
Yep.
Because what a lot of people don't understand, as much as you recruit, as much as you're going to games, there's 28,000 high schools in the United States.
Right. Yep.
And your recruiting budget is what? Are you comfortable saying what your budget looks like just for recruiting?
Well, I am comfortable saying it, but I guess I don't technically have one. So
you don't have a budget.
I have a lump sum budget, and
right.
And so recruiting is it's all mixed in there with team travel, and it's just however much we spend on it, is what we spend. I would say on a given year, I probably spend around 5,000-6,000 recruiting.
Yeah. And you're pulling that away from other places too.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
And so that if I spend more recruiting, that means I spend less on food that we ate as a team, during the season, or jerseys or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's the ancillary things like taking the kids to a movie or going to a better restaurant, eating at Fridays instead of Subway or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
So that money, you have to decide how you're going to use that money. Okay.
Yes.
$5,000 is like,
it's not much.
It's like 3 trips. And if you're going to take your assistant, it might be 2 trips somewhere. Right.
Which is and so I told you I coach for an AAU program, so I'm able to kind of double dip.
Yeah.
And because they'll pay for me, traveling to different tournaments or whatever, because I'm coaching.
Right.
And so I can get out to watch to some tournaments without necessarily having to pull from my own budget. But yeah, your point is that I'm not trying to waste money, and I'm not trying to waste money in the process, because money that I'm spending recruiting is money I could be spending elsewhere.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about that. Now that we've kind of set the precedent of what our college coaches recruiting budget kind of looks like and what we have to deal with, and how important how efficiently we use that small amount of money. Right.
Yep.
how important is it for you, and how do you feel when a recruit reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I'm interested in you"? What does that do for you?
Oh, it helps. It helps a ton. It's half the process is knowing who to go after, and like knowing who you can or can't get, or at least who you're likely to have a shot, to get. And so if a kid reaches out, if it's a genuine inquiry, it helps a ton because I immediately know, okay, first box is checked. This is a kid that I can get, or that I can recruit. And it's someone who, and ideally it's also someone who's done some research on us, and they also could actually see themselves here. And so I need to sell, the program and myself and the school, but some of that ideally has already been done as well because they've already done some research and they know that we have their major, they know where we're located. So they save me a lot of time, energy, and money if they do some of that stuff for me.
Right. You don't have to find them. You don't have to convince them to look at your school. You don't have to find their contact information, right?
I just have to evaluate them.
I just have to evaluate them and build a relationship, see if we like each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically when a kid reaches out to you, they've done 70% of the work for you, right?
Yep. For sure.
Love that.
For
All right.
sure.
You used the word research. I want you to dive into it because that was a big part of what you wrote and the advice that you gave. Why is it so important that kids do their research, not only on you and the basketball program, but they do their research on Benedictine before they reach out to you? Why is that so important?
So from my standpoint, it show I'm trying my best to be as efficient as possible. And so it shows me that they're genuine. And it shows me that it shows me that they are serious and they could actually see themselves going to this school, or at least serious enough that they want to find out more.
Right.
So it's really important that you do your research because I can tell when you haven't, and I and I'm trying not to waste, my time and energy, and I'm trying to make sure I spend it in the right place. So um, nothing bothers me more than I get an email from someone. I watch her film, I like her, this and that, and then I talk to her on the phone, and she tells me she's sure she wants to do engineering, and I'm like, we don't have an engineering major. What, you couldn't have looked this up before you reached out to me. You should probably, if you really want to do engineering, you should only be reaching out to schools that have engineering.
That's
Uh, you know,
yeah.
uh, and so it's important that you do that research as a student athlete, prior to reaching out, because you're gonna save me the time and energy, but you're also gonna save it for yourself. Because that's really a waste of, if you really care that much about engineering, you're also wasting your time by sending a blanket email out to schools, and half of them don't have your major.
That's right.
So you also would be saving yourself, time and energy, and same as your parents, their energy and what they're spending in the process in terms of like trying to get you out to visits and all that. You can make the process way more efficient for me and for you.
Right. Right. And if you want a coach to recruit you, it helps to know who they are. It helps to know what their program is, and if you don't know, it's there. There's things that you can get to online. You can see your roster, you can see your bio, they can see your background, they can see the majors at Benedictine, right?
Yep.
And you can find all that in under 5 minutes. So I love that.
I ironically, I I'm probably beating a dead horse, but I seriously have found that, like, the people that I would categorize as having a high motor on the court, they're the ones that, like, they're gonna research stuff on their own, and they're looking up this, and you talk to them on the phone, and they're talking to you about things at your school. For some reason, like, those are the people that
Yes.
they get it. And like, I give them one thing and they're going to do that plus three more things.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing in the recruiting process. The ones that have a high motor on the court are also the ones that kind of tend to take ownership of their recruiting process. And those are the kids that are more likely to have a list of schools written out, and they're scratching things off, and they got boxes that they're checking.
That's
I
right.
don't know why. I don't know why, but it just, in my experience, it's worked that way.
Yep. And I'm training kids how to be that type of recruit. That's what I'm doing. So
Yep.
I love hearing that. I love that that's a big pinpoint for you. It's the same thing. I can be on the phone with a recruit for 2 minutes. And it's so amazing that 2 minutes into the conversation, how often I will stop my train of thought and I'll go, "Hey, Oliver, if I walked into your bedroom right now, what would I see?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny how a parent will laugh and they'll go, "How did you know to ask that question?" I'll go, "Because in 2 minutes, they were distracted. They couldn't explain their grades to me. They couldn't explain their relationship with their coach with me. They couldn't
Yep.
explain why they love the game and want to keep playing it."
Yep.
So that typically tells me their room isn't clean. They're not consistent with their homework. They're not consistent with their relationships. And all those things tie together, right?
They say how you do one thing is how you do everything.
That's right. Yeah. So I love that, coach. I just love how important that is to you, and you're building a culture, a great culture at Benedictine because of those things. And I love that. And you're such a great example of that. I want to dive into camps with you. Um,
Yep.
what do you see as the value of your camps and summer camps for kids that want to play college basketball? What's the value in that for you?
The value for me is I love AAU basketball. I think that it's really good in terms of helping kids get recruited and all that. However, at the same time, I don't typically feel like there's a lot of structure with in terms of like what you are running, offensively and defensively. And so the value for me is I get to now apply that structure to kids that I have identified, that I've liked, and that I've seen. But now I get to actually see how well, they can read screens or set screens, because it may not be something that I could quite pinpoint when I watch them play.
Right.
Um, and I can do that within the context of like what our system is and how it would look, so if you can pick up on how we run our lanes in transition like that, that means a lot more to me, because this is specific. This is exactly how we do it here. And the fact that you could pick it up in one day of camp means a lot. So it allows me to evaluate you in areas where maybe I couldn't do it so easily, simply because of what you were running or what your coach's, style is, or what their system is. So
Right.
now I can get you here and put you in some things that are more similar to what you would be doing here. And I can see, kind of how you fit in that context.
I love that. That's great. It's good advice too. Um, Oliver, thank you so much for taking time on a game day for me. I miss you. You know how much I love you, and I'm so proud of you. And you've not only you building a great program at Benedictine, and they're lucky to have you, but you're a great dad. You're a great husband, and I'm just honored to have you in my life. And I hope you know I'm your biggest cheerleader. So keep doing what you're doing, and I'm here whenever you need me.
I appreciate it, Coach. Yeah, you've been there for me quite a bit in my coaching career. So when you say you're here if I need you, I know you mean it, because I've seen it.
Well, you make me a better coach and a better person, and man, your girls are lucky to have you, and keep doing all the things you're doing, and I'll always be there watching and cheering.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Coach.
You bet. Have a great one. We'll talk to you
All
soon.
right. Yep.
And there you have it. Oh, Oliver Wiseman, head women's basketball coach at Benedictine University in Chicago. What a great conversation. Um, you look at a young guy like Oliver, who started as a D3 player, really, really smart player, great attitude. Every year he was on my roster, he led us in GPA. So he knows the power of academics. has turned himself into a world-class leader. Always was a vocal leader, always was somebody that was compassionate, always somebody that thought about his teammates first, always thought about the big picture. And I just love what he's doing. I love who he's become, but he hasn't really changed in terms of his character and his value system. And he's now sharing that with college kids, teaching them how to be the best versions of themselves. And I was just really impressed when we talk about what he's looking for in a recruit. Do they look the part? Do they have that confidence about them? Do they have the motor? Do they have the work ethic? And I loved how he stressed that motor isn't just your actions, your legs and your arms and how fast you're moving. It's your mouth, it's your eyes, it's your observation. Always be thinking, always be adjusting. Just really impressive stuff. And then after those two things, now it's skill set. Now it's can you do the things really, really well that we need you to do, or do we have to teach you all those things? So, and he's always looking for somebody that makes good decisions, the right decisions on and off the court. So loved all that. I hope you enjoyed those nuggets. I hope you took some notes, because there was some really good stuff in there for any coach. But thank you again for listening. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can find me at Recruit Coach, the number 4 and the letter U, Recruit Coach for You. I'm always dropping nuggets about recruitment, player development, building your program, building communities. So if you'd like to follow me, I'll continue to throw good things at you to help you with your kids, to help you with your coaching, to help you with your administration, and help you make a difference with all you coaches out there. Please, if you like this and you're liking the conversations we're having, please subscribe on Apple or on Spotify. We'll continue to bring you great coaches every Friday. And remember, we're here for you. If you have questions, you have feedback, there's things you don't like and you want to let me know that, I'd love to hear it. Anything that I can do better for you. I know sometimes I say things and I don't really mean to say things, and I didn't know I said it that way, and maybe I used the wrong word or the wrong phrase or the wrong energy. Don't be afraid to tell me. I always want to get better and make a difference. But thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed Coach Oliver Wiseman. Bright star in the coaching world. He's got 40 or 50 good years in him, I think, and I hope he continues to love it and find joy in it, because he's really good at it. So have a great week. Have a great middle part of your January. I hope if you're somewhere cold, I hope you're warm and you're staying out of this crazy weather we're having, at least in Colorado and throughout the Midwest. So take care. Have a great journey. Stay significant. Bye-bye.